You might be familiar with the Irate Gamer, who was one of the early YouTubers from 2007. He gained a lot of notoriety for his Super Mario Bros. 2 review, which was featured on the front page of YouTube, but he was also known for plagiarism accusations. What actually led to the fall of the Irate Gamer, and was his content good or bad? Let's take a look. What's going on? It's Podrez coming at you with another video. Alright, if you haven't already, check out our Discord server, discord.podrez.net. Alright, let's talk about the Irate Gamer. Most people were introduced to the Irate Gamer when his Super Mario Bros. 2 review was featured on YouTube. His videos on Muscle and Ninja Turtles also gained a lot of attention. People noticed his above-average production quality, but also noticed that his work was strikingly similar to another YouTuber. How did this all happen? Let's start from the beginning. I did want to thank the Irate Gamer Sucks blog for giving me an organized timeline of the Irate Gamer. The man behind the Irate Gamer, Chris Boris, wanted to create his own TV show, but was struggling to gain traction. He made some amateur videos, but none of them ever gained views. His big attempt at fame was his ghost hunting show, Haunted Investigators, but once again, this never gained much attention. In 2007, Chris took notice of some of the angry reviewers on YouTube, especially the Angry Video Game Nerd, and wanted to create his own show that was like it. He published 8 videos on various mediocre NES games, but none of them ever gained much traction. His earlier videos are definitely rough around the edges. The editing and lighting wasn't quite as good as his later videos, the jokes were corny, and some of his statements in the videos didn't make much sense. The biggest issue though was the alleged plagiarism. Chris closely imitated the Angry Video Game Nerd and sometimes even said the same lines as him. In his Mission Impossible review, he says the AVGN's catchphrase verbatim.
Over again? What a load of What a load of I mean, you can't even...
Some of the jokes he made were similar to what James would do, like in his Where's Waldo review where he makes up his own ending. Despite the plagiarism and other issues, his videos were still entertaining at times, and the production quality was still way better than average. Chris would have his most successful breakthrough with his review of Super Mario Bros. 2. He goes over the controversies surrounding the game, including the Japanese version and Doki Doki Panic. The video did have some problems, like claiming the game sucks just because it's different and his statement that Toad is useless. But nonetheless, the video was still featured on YouTube and it became one of his most viewed videos. This video alone put him on the map and he suddenly gained thousands of subscribers overnight. His most controversial video was Ninja Turtles because of the alleged plagiarism. His video made a lot of the same points as AVGN's video on the same game. He commented on the weird enemy selection, the Donatello glitch, and even the pizza that's impossible to get.
Just what the were they thinking when they placed a pizza box way down here? Now, just how the hell am I supposed to get to this in time? If I go for it...
And some game designer who's laughing their ass off just decided to put a pizza down there. Okay, well, what's the point? I mean, are you gonna...
Because they're talking about the same game, it's understandable that some of the same points are going to be made, but some of his statements, like the impossible pizza, are too coincidental. Many people were outraged by this review, and some YouTubers even released their own videos calling him out.
The Irate Gamer does more than just what people think as mimic. He doesn't just mimic the AVGN. He like outright plagiarizes the guy. Outright. In
general, some YouTubers in the angry reviewer scene criticize his videos.
He's like the AVGN if the AVGN wasn't funny at all and did nothing but special effects constantly. That's this guy. This guy is not a game fan, alright? He doesn't even know what he's talking about half the time.
Chris most likely realized people were upset, so he drastically changed his style going forward. His humor became more dry, there were more cutaway gags, and sometimes he would even talk about good games. I actually didn't hate this era of the Irate Gamer. It definitely falls under the it's so bad it's good clause, but there were definitely some jokes that didn't make sense. One of my favorite reviews of his was Rob the Robot. His review of the toy was arguably better than the AVGN's. In late 2007, Chris released an Irate Gamer DVD featuring the first 11 episodes. Unfortunately, it was very rushed. The episodes had almost no changes, and the only exclusive content was a behind-the-scenes segment, but it was only 3 minutes and 30 seconds long. The collection itself was nothing more than a burned DVD-R, and you were already getting most of the content on YouTube anyway. What's even the point of buying it? The only reason he created this DVD so quickly was to get it released before the AVGN's DVD, which had way more exclusive content. To be fair, Chris learned from his mistakes when he released more DVDs several years later. These were actually professionally made instead of using burned DVD-Rs, and you were getting more content this time. Speaking of the first DVD, it always seemed like Chris needed a response to whatever the AVGN did. When the Angry Video Game Nerd introduced an animated character, the Irate Gamer had one too. When the AVGN made his own spin-off series, Chris created one that was similar to it. When the Angry Video Game Nerd made a Mortal Kombat reference, so did the Irate Gamer. Also in late 2007, Chris partnered with the website GotGame, which was a gaming news website. GotGame was struggling to gain traction, so they took advantage of the Irate Gamer's increasing popularity at the time. This meant that Chris would start talking about modern games and would even go to E3. This partnership definitely shouldn't have happened. You could tell that Chris was not passionate about modern games because his reviews were usually very short and he got a lot of facts wrong. Some reviews were shorter than 2 minutes. One video in particular that people didn't like was his 3-in-1 review where he talks about 3 different games. He admitted that he only played Brutal Legend for an hour, and he claimed that Tekken 6 was bad despite only playing the story mode. GotGame desperately needed the Irate Gamer to stay relevant, so they would always cover for him whenever he made mistakes. For example, when Chris stole footage of Sonic Generations from another YouTuber for his own review, GotGame acknowledged it but never held Chris responsible for it. Speaking of E3, this was also a disaster. He was not great at interviewing the representatives and would always shuffle through the same 3 or 4 questions. Sometimes he would ask questions that were already public knowledge. It was clear that Chris didn't have any interest in modern games, and it was showing in his reviews and E3 interviews. I think he should have stuck with retro games and never joined this partnership. Throughout the years, Chris would launch additional content that was not related to the Irate Gamer. Early on, he created the Breakfast Rant, which would eventually become Irate the 80s. Instead of games, Chris talked about cereal, toys, and food that came out in the 80s and sometimes the 90s. These videos were actually very entertaining, my favorite one probably being the Bud Bowl episode. He would sometimes get his facts wrong though. Another series he created was History of Video Games. This is another thing that I believe shouldn't have happened. This was supposed to be an educational documentary about the history of video games, but his videos were full of misinformation. The most humorous example is when he called Al Alcorn Al Acorn. Some of the episodes were good, but they should have been just regular Irate Gamer episodes instead of under the History of Video Games umbrella. Sometimes Chris would prioritize the spin-off shows instead of making regular Irate Gamer content, which was a bad idea. People are subscribed for the Irate Gamer, not Irate the 80s or History of Video Games. In fact, his amount of content was steadily going down each year. In 2007, he made 13 Irate Gamer episodes. In 2008, he released 11. In 2009, he only released 2. This would become a common trend with Chris, where he was not consistent with putting out content. This is, in my opinion, the biggest flaw with the Irate Gamer and why he has not been as successful as he could have been. The biggest side project that Chris was trying to promote was his ghost hunting show. It was originally called Haunted Investigators, but it would go under different names later on. It's clear that Chris is more passionate about the paranormal than he is about video games, but his fans definitely don't feel the same way. Over the years, Chris has made several ghost-related videos, but none of them ever got the traction that his Irate Gamer episodes did. He's really tried hard to convert his fans, but it has not worked. My advice would be to put the ghost hunting content on a different channel. Over the years, Chris would try to revamp the show with a new gimmick. In 2010, he introduced a new story arc that involved his recurring characters. This would have been okay if it were a 1 or 2 part video, but it was dragged on for 6 or 7 videos. The stories didn't make much sense, and it seemed like Chris was making it up as he went along. The main villain, the Shadow Overlord, didn't actually do anything, and some of the plot points that Chris introduced never led to anything. In 2015, Chris made a drastic change to the Irate Gamer formula. He started nitpicking good games instead of reviewing bad ones. He tried to act more animated in his videos by screaming and having a higher pitched voice. The videos all had the same formula. He would pick a well-established NES game, talk about how hard it is, scream a bunch of times, and then break the cartridge at the end. I didn't enjoy these videos as much. The acting was way too forced, and I preferred when he was talking about bad games. On the plus side, he was making weekly content at this time, and he published more Irate Gamer videos than he had ever done. Unfortunately, he gave up on it too quickly and stopped doing it when he wasn't getting the views that he was hoping for. He not only blamed the YouTube algorithm, but he claimed that there was a dark side to YouTube. According to him, he was contacted by a higher power of YouTube who offered him a deal, and because he refused the deal, the channel took a huge hit in views.
This was also around the point in time where I was approached by a higher power in the industry, and I gotta word my words very carefully here. And when you're approached by these people, you better accept, because if you don't, they have many ways to cut your throat. After I told them to basically go fly a kite, I saw a dramatic drop in views and revenue. My channel was never the same again. And
he never elaborated on who the higher power was or what the deal was. It seems like Chris came up with a good story that made it look like it's not his fault, but in my opinion, he did make a few mistakes in the past that might have contributed to his lack of views. Chris retired the Irate Gamer for a couple years, but then he returned in 2008 with a show called Chris Neo. This was like the original show, but more relaxed. Chris was way more laid back, and there wasn't as much editing being done. I do like the idea of Chris being himself and not trying to force anger, but I find this particular era of the Irate Gamer to be unmemorable. This iteration of the show was very short-lived, as he only made a few episodes. In 2020, Chris announced that he and the Angry Video Game Nerd, the same man he was accused of plagiarizing from, were making a crossover video. This was a shocking announcement, but it definitely would have been a bigger deal if it happened 10 years earlier. I figured this would be a collaborative effort between Chris and James, but when the video came out, it felt more like a regular Irate Gamer episode with an AVGN cameo at the end. Because of how ridiculous the story was, it seemed like Chris wrote the script and the AVGN only read his lines. A little disappointing, but it was an okay video. I do like that he covered Dick Tracy on the NES because it's a notably bad game. I would rather him do this than bash good games. I also like that he paid homage to other angry reviewers. He would return with Irate Gamer episodes as well as Irate the 80s. Numerous episodes featured celebrities that were bought from Cameo.com, which was an interesting way to push out his videos to a wider audience. I think it kinda worked because most of the videos do have decent views. He did redo a couple episodes like Ninja Turtles and RoboCop. I didn't see the point of him doing this though, especially the RoboCop episode because half of it was ripped from the original RoboCop video. In general, Chris would sometimes cheat his way to get views. For example, last year he uploaded a video titled Uncanny X-Men and Wolverine NES Video Game Review. This looks like a new video, but he actually just re-uploaded the same video he made several years ago. It also doesn't even cover the Wolverine NES game like he claims. He only re-uploaded this to trick people into watching it for views. To be fair, he would cover the game in a future video. He also made an Irate the 80s video about a McDonald's burger that promoted the movie Batman Returns. I enjoyed this video, except the fact that it was not really 9 minutes long. The video ended at 4 minutes, with the rest being recycled footage from a previous Irate the 80s episode. I also noticed he made some of his videos member only when they were completely free before. Chris has done some of these types of tactics for years, and it's extremely unethical. Despite all of that, I do think he makes good content, and it's sad to hear he might be done making Irate Gamer videos. I think Chris would have been more successful if he were more consistent with Irate Gamer content and if he understood what his fans wanted. Case in point, he just released a trailer for his upcoming series related to creepypastas. The comments in this video are overwhelmingly negative, with many people wishing Chris would go back to making Irate Gamer content. I'm definitely not a YouTube expert, but if the Irate Gamer ever returns again, he should go back to reviewing bad games in his old style and not just screaming or overacting like he does now. With people thinking that the AVGN's quality has gone down in the past few years, this is a good time for the Irate Gamer to come back and give people the older style reviews that people want so badly. If you made it this far, hit that subscribe button right down there. And how do you feel about the Irate Gamer, and do you agree with my take? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.